More than 62,000 people strong, the capital city requires a leader of wisdom and a vision. Join us now for a special KGWN News Channel 5 mayoral debate.
Good evening and welcome to a KGWN special program, the 2016 mayoral debate for the city of Cheyenne. I'm Anthony Keith.
And I'm Tiffany Logan. We'll be moderating this one-hour special. This year's race is crowded with 10 candidates that filed to replace Mayor Kaysen, who is not seeking re-election.
Those candidates in alphabetical order by last name are Jim Brown, Ricky Coppinger, Stephen Gannison, Peter Illaway, Marion Orr,
John Palmer, Albert Robinson, Scott Riball, Amy Surdam, and Rex Wild. We asked you to help narrow down that list for this debate through an online poll.
The four chosen, again in alphabetical order, are Jim Brown, Stephen Gannison, Marion Orr, and Amy Surdam. The rules of the debate are as follows. 1 minute for opening statements.
30 seconds for each question. Each candidate will get a chance to answer the same question. If a candidate calls out another at the moderator's discretion, a 15-second rebuttal may be permitted, but only if the moderator calls on the candidate.
We'll start with questions from the station. The second half will be questions from the public. The candidates' seating positions were chosen prior to getting started by drawing numbers.
We begin with Jim Brown. For an opening statement, you have 1 minute.
Tiffany, thank you. Anthony, thank you for allowing me to be here. Before I get started, I would like to do a little caveat. And I want to just state that any statements I make tonight are strictly business, and I try and keep them professional. If I make any statements towards anyone, they're certainly not towards anyone on this forum, any city employee, or anyone any citizens in the city, but sometimes I've been known to speak very frankly, and it's not meant to hurt anyone's feelings. I am Jim Brown. I've been on the city council for 10 years, and in those 10 years, I've chaired the finance committee for 7 years and the public service committee for 1 year, and I've worked very closely with city staff and citizens and received a lot of calls from constituents over the years. And I think that as we move through tonight, you'll see that I'm probably very well qualified to be the mayor of the city in 2017.
All right, thanks so much, Jim. Moving on to Marion Orr. Opening statement, you have 1 minute as well.
Thank you, Tiffany. I'm Marion Orr. I was raised in Casper, Wyoming. I have been in Cheyenne for over 20 years. I started a small business, very successful small business, over 17 years ago. Government affairs, it's a very competitive profession, and it's one where it's the outcomes are measured on your ability to be open, to be honest, and to be respected. And I believe that those are qualities and traits that I would definitely bring to this position. I've worked with legislators, I've worked with other mayors, I've worked with county commissioners over the past 20 years, and I believe I really have a good flavor for what's going on, not only in the state but also with local governments. That being said, we all know that the state is definitely in an area of economic downturn. I believe that this is a time where it's not one to panic, but we certainly need to practice fiscal sanity, and I believe that I'm the candidate to provide that. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our next candidate, Stevie Gannison. You have 1 minute as well.
Thank you, Tiff. I'm Steve. I got moved here in 1976, and me and my family from the Air Force, my father, brought us here. We were like in shock, but I've come to love this place. I serve on the Housing and Community Development Office for 18 years. It is a public service that I have rendered to the city, giving money to Habitat, Climb Wyoming. We've done the depot. We've given money throughout the city, community shelter, and I serve on this board in an advocacy to help those that are in the city. And what I feel like being mayor, that I really know that I can help others besides, like, I definitely want to help out the city employees, and the police department, very vital to the city of any city. You need the police department, and just community development. Let's get some jobs and let's make this city a greater city.
And our last candidate, Amy Surdam, you have 1 minute for an opening statement.
Thank you. I'm running for mayor because I absolutely love Cheyenne. I love our people. They're kind and resilient and hardworking, and they put their all into everything that they do. I'm an executive in the military, in the private sector, and in the public sector, and I have the qualifications to lead our city into a positive culture and a positive community into the future. I have the skills and knowledge to manage the budget, the organization and staff to be a team player and to create a positive culture that we need in this community desperately. I can focus on economic development and health, wellness, and safety of our community. I want our community to be a positive place for families, for our citizens, for visitors. I want our community to thrive.
All right, thanks so much, guys. Now we're going to move on to our first round of questions. These are coming from the station.
And we'll start with candidate number 2, which is Marion Orr. Marion Orr, if it came down to a decision between raising taxes or a reduction in workforce with our current city staff, which would you choose and for what reasons?
Thank you for that question. I would opt for, unfortunately, a reduction in staff, and I would do it very measured. I would take a look at, very similar to Casper, they've recently had to cut their budget by a third. I would look at offering early retirements, other incentives, but I would definitely do a reduction in force before I would look at taxes. But I would look at other cuts, actually, even before I would personnel. That would be the last resort.
Thank you. And Stevie, same question to you. If you need it repeated, let me know.
Please repeat.
Now, repeating the question, if it came down to a decision between raising taxes or a reduction in workforce with our current city staff, which would you choose and for what reasons?
I would choose raising taxes. And I'll tell you, I don't believe in ever cutting resources that are helping in this community that are thriving. I believe that we could stick together, join together, band together, give a little. It's just like an offering. You give a little, and you got to give in order to thrive. And so I say I would cut, not city employees.
Thank you for your answer. Amy, same question.
Well, it's really fortunate that we don't have to make that decision right now, but I think there are a lot of ways to handle inefficiencies within the city organization, to include natural attrition and consolidating services. And you never want to reduce staff just to cut staff. However, there are ways to accommodate cutting the budget within that and reducing staff through natural attrition and other ways.
Thank you, Amy. Jim?
Well, first, cities don't raise taxes. We're not allowed to raise taxes. Cities ask people if they want to tax themselves. The 5th and 6th penny tax always go to a ballot of the citizens. And if they want to raise taxes on themselves, then they would. Those taxes couldn't be used for operating expenses. I don't think we will ever have to cut employees without some kind of defined plan, such as early buyouts or early retirements. And that's the way I would approach that, if that comes.
Okay. Moving on to our second question of the evening, we will start with Stevie. The question is, what is your opinion on our current laws? Do you feel like any in particular need to be updated?
I do feel there needs to be some updates on some of the city codes, and they've been in there for years, and some of them are not used, and some of them are not enforced. And I believe that we need to look at all aspects of things that are going on in the city of Cheyenne, and we need to just band together and do something.
Okay, moving on to Amy. Same question. You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, I would agree with Stevie that there are some ordinances that definitely need to be reviewed, and if they're not being enforced, we need to either start enforcing them or we need to remove them. And especially things pertaining to blight or snow removal, and we need to just take a much harder look at that.
Jim?
Would you repeat the question, please?
I can. What is your opinion on our current laws? Do you feel like any in particular need to be updated?
Good question. Some of the ordinance, there's really two kinds. We have the Unified Development Code, which is our development ordinances, which if you want to develop within the city, you have to follow those ordinances. I think we are on top of that. Those are reviewed yearly. Some of the other ordinances, which have to do with law enforcement and code enforcement, I think they're being looked at from one other member of the council. Some of them need to be cleaned up. Are we completely out of touch with reality? No. As those ordinances come forward, I think we need to look at them and see if they're relevant any longer.
Okay. Marion, same question for you.
Thank you. I really appreciate the work being done to reduce ordinances that aren't being enforced. But with that, I do wish that we could possibly do a better job of enforcing laws, especially speeding. I know that in my neighborhood it's unbelievable, the racetrack on Warren Avenue in particular. But that means more police. And I believe that if we're going to look at laws, we need to better equip our police department. We're currently 11 men and women underserved. And before we increase laws, I believe that we need to up our police protection.
Thank you. On to our third question for this evening, starting with Amy. The debate over the transfer of a retail liquor license to Sam's Club took center stage for many local businesses and residents. Would you support another big box store acquiring a retail liquor license? Why or why not?
I think it's a great opportunity to really take a look at how we manage our liquor licenses in Wyoming right now. I think that people applying for liquor licenses, there needs to be a process that is fair. If people qualify for a liquor license, then I think everyone should be able to get that liquor license, and possible ways to allocate more liquor licenses to accommodate that would be to increase the baseline inventory so that people just can't sit on their liquor licenses. So if people met the qualifications, I would support it.
Jim?
I agree with Amy that I think that at the state level our liquor license laws are completely outdated and they're archaic, but at the local level we have to deal with what's presented to us by the state legislature. So the city council for the most part is put in a very precarious position when we allow these liquor license transfers. I voted yes on the transfer to Sam's. I voted yes on the transfer to Safeway that failed. I don't believe it's the city council's job at the city level to try and manipulate
Time.
funding.
All right. Same question, Marion.
Thank you. I believe when it comes to our liquor laws, as it was mentioned earlier, we do need to look to the state. That primarily is where it's being regulated. I do know our Corporations Committee at the state legislature is looking at that. They are looking at specifically, I believe, what we refer to as parked licenses. In this community, we have a good number of licenses that simply are not being used, and so I think that we need to take a look at that structure and go forward with that.
Thank you for your response. And Stevie?
That's a tough one, but I'm thinking about the little guys. But at the same time, business is business, and we must move forward. But we still want to make sure we give everybody the proper, chance to operate a business in Cheyenne. I don't want to just give it to all the giants and leave the little guys out. I'm a small business owner myself.
We've got a rebuttal. Jim, you have 15 seconds.
This isn't a rebuttal directly at Stevie, but what I wanted to finish saying is it's not the city council's job in life to try and direct commerce. And so I feel bad for the mom and pop stores, but commerce is commerce. The right thing to do is the right thing to do.
Okay, moving on to our next question. What projects would you like to see on the six-penny ballot? And we will start with Jim.
Well, there's actually 7, and the council's in the process of developing its priorities for the six-penny. My personal one of the highest ones on mine is the Christensen Road overpass that would take Camp Stewart Road over the railroads and connect with Pershing Boulevard. That's in the eastern part of the city. I think that's been lacking. We have over 4,000 jobs over in the Walmart area and up through that development. We need to have a way for further development to move in and out of that area.
And moving on to Marion, same question for you. You have 30 seconds.
I really love the six-penny in that it provides a really good menu of services, everything from infrastructure needs, which I believe our city's streets and roads and alleys really need to be a top priority. Good sewer, clean water, those are priorities. Of course, amenities are always lovely. I agree that the Christensen overpass should definitely be on that list. And an area that I don't think that our community necessarily has been paying attention to, and that is Cheyenne Regional Medical Center. I do know that the hospital is in need of finding financing and funds to do some major renovations with the East Campus, and I would recommend that project.
And moving on to Stevie, same question for you, 30 seconds.
Every one of those are good, but I would love to see a rec center. Our youth are failing, they're dying, and there are drugs in the city, and we have got to stop this epidemic, and we've got to move forward to make sure that we secure a future for the youth. We're the Jungle Book. We're a pack of wolves. We need to take in the man cub. It's not your child, but we need to take in that child. Vote rec center if we could.
Amy, same question for you, 30 seconds.
I definitely support a triage of economic development initiatives, infrastructure initiatives, and amenities. And within those, I do think the Christensen Overpass is something to support. I think something specific for downtown revitalization and West Edge is something specific to support. And I'm all for the youth and a rec center as well.
All right, on to our fifth question for the evening. We'll start with Marion on this one. What is your take on the Children's Museum of Cheyenne and how it should be funded?
Thank you. I'm supportive of the Children's Museum. I believe it's a great amenity. I believe that as a private nonprofit, when it was an $11 million project, it was going to be funded with private funds, and the next year it was a $21 million project, and they went after trying to seek public funding, and I really am opposed to seeking public funds for a private nonprofit entity.
All right, same question to you, Stevie.
I like the Children's Museum. I'm a big believer on revitalization of the downtown. I was one of the first boards to put some money into that downtown, and so I would love to see downtown thrive. And if it's going to bring our youth down there, let's do that. Let's get it done, but do it in a manner where we all feel good about this.
Amy?
Thank you for the opportunity to address this question. You know, when the museum project started, the building was always estimated at about $8 to $10 million, and the exhibits always estimated around $3 million plus some other expenses. So to say that the project started at $11 million for the entire project is not accurate. I feel like the museum board has worked very hard to secure as many funds as they can. They've raised $3 million and written tons of grants, and asking the public for support at this point is appropriate.
Time. And Jim?
I'm glad I did my caveat at the beginning of the show, because this response is certainly not directed towards anyone specific. I agree the Children's Museum is a great concept for the city. I do believe it's the wrong place to have it on a state highway with a bar 3 doors down and a couple questionable hotels within walking distance of it. I would never, and I couldn't support tax dollars going to the Children's Museum.
And we do have a rebuttal request. Amy, your rebuttal?
So what's beautiful about this is the process for the public, allowing the public the opportunity to say, do we want to fund this ourselves? And the downtown is the absolute appropriate place to place the Children's Museum. It's going to help revitalize our downtown and change our downtown.
Okay, we are now moving on to our sixth question of the night. We'll start with Stevie, and the question is, which departments are your priority if cuts have to be made?
Read that one more time.
Which departments are your priority if cuts have to be made?
Oh, my priority, for sure, police department is a priority for me. Sanitation is a priority. And your fire department is a very big priority. Now, with that, there's other ones that are very important also, street and alley. But if we had to, I think those 4 would be top 4 for me.
Okay, Amy, same question for you.
You absolutely have to provide a safe community, and you accomplish a safe community by having physical safety through the protection of the police department and the fire department, safe water, and safe infrastructure.
All right, Jim, same question for you.
I would have to agree with Stevie. The whole purpose of government is to provide public safety to its citizens. So those 4 departments, I think, are priority. It comes down to quality of life projects or quality of life departments such as your Parks and Rec that would probably feel the brunt of the first round of reductions, if that even becomes necessary.
Marion, same question for you.
I believe that our city administration is actually currently looking at ways to make some cuts. An area that I would start with would be possibly the fleet maintenance area. We have over 800 vehicles in our fleet with 580 employees, and so gosh, you know, I could see going on eBay and getting rid of some of those vehicles that only rack up a couple hundred miles a year. I just also really want to stress that in these times, it's about putting our needs over our wants and looking at efficiencies.
Time. Thank you. On to our 7th question of the evening, starting with Amy Serdam. Recently, cities like Laramie and Jackson have passed anti-discrimination ordinances for the LGBT community. Does the same type of ordinance need to exist in Cheyenne?
So first off, I absolutely despise discrimination of any type. That being said, I would not support the current ordinance as written, as it does have criminal charge implications. And I also question the role of a municipality in what is a larger federal issue.
All right, thank you. Jim, same question?
First off, there's no ordinance before the city council on this at all right now. There was one several months ago that was withdrawn on second reading. I don't believe I would be in favor of an ordinance. I was asked this question out at Super Day today by several people. I can't support an ordinance. I think it's inappropriate for municipalities or a municipal judge to judge someone's accusations, but I would support a resolution from the City Council supporting equal and fair treatment.
Thank you for your response. Marion, same question.
I am very much in favor of non-discrimination laws as well as protection of religious freedoms. I've worked on this issue in the past, and I strongly believe that it's a state issue. And for that reason, if elected mayor, I would work very closely with our state legislature and other like-minded mayors to come up with a really comprehensive approach so that what we don't have is a patchwork of different resolutions, different ordinances within the 99 different municipalities within our state.
All right, thank you. And Stevie, your response.
I would say once we establish that we're not going to tolerate any type of discrimination, it doesn't matter who or what it's about, and once the city becomes a city of love, I believe we can get past that. But I would support an ordinance of some type to be strong-willed with those who don't agree with someone else by the way they look, color, or just nationality, or whatever it might be.
Moving on to our next question, we will start with Jim. Great Lakes Airlines has soared in some cities and experienced turbulence in others. What is your take on the status of the airline in the capital city, and do you think the airport needs to actively seek out another service?
First, there's an airport board. The City Council doesn't get directly involved with Great Lakes or the airport. They're kind of their own little quasi-entity up there. Very quickly, Cheyenne's kind of its worst enemy. We're within 90 miles of an international airport, so it makes it tough for regional airlines to come in here and set up shop and make money at it. Sure, I think Cheyenne should be looking at other airlines to come in, but that's easier said than done. And I think until our new airport is built, maybe perhaps if we build it, they will come.
Okay. Marion, same question for you, 30 seconds.
I believe it actually is a city issue because funding for the new terminal was funded through taxpayer dollars. And so it's very disappointing that most days there are very few, if any, flights going in and out. As far as state subsidies, Cheyenne's not favorably looked upon because of the fact that we are so close to Denver International, not only DIA, but even Laramie with other air service carriers. I believe that there are many holding out that if we build it, they will come. I really do hope that they are recruiting heavily.
Okay. Stevie, same question for you.
We're the capital. Let's get somebody in here. I would like to go drive 10 minutes to get on an airplane so I don't have to wait in line for 2 hours and 2-hour drive down. So, I mean, if it boiled down to it, I would love to see another air carrier come in here and let's get some flights to Las Vegas.
Okay. Amy, same question for you, 30 seconds.
So the bigger question is, are we willing to subsidize air service in Wyoming and in Cheyenne or not? Because unless we're willing to subsidize air service, we're never going to have adequate air service here. Even Jackson Hole, that has flights in and out all the time, is heavily subsidized. So unless we're willing to make that subsidy as a state and as a city, you know, we might not have adequate air service here. But is it important to have adequate air service? Personally, for me, yes. I'm not sure if the community would agree and be willing to pay for that.
All right. Well, we'll start with Marion Orr on this question. What, in your opinion, has been the biggest failure for the City Council in recent history, and what would you have done differently?
So far, I believe the biggest failure is actually going on right now, and I believe it is with the budget and the decision to give a 2.5% increase across the board to all employees. I believe that there are some employees that are underfunded, some that are above market value. I believe that a much more comprehensive approach needs to be made, and I'm very concerned at using reserves for ongoing expenses.
Thank you. Stevie?
I say the biggest failure was when they stopped giving employees that 5% or 2% and allowed city employees to have to go get 2 and 3 jobs or be on welfare too. That was a big failure. We should have found a way to put it in the budget to make these families survive on one income and not be away from their children at night.
Well, thank you. Same question to you, Amy.
I think a big failure has been that there has been a lack of vision for our community, and there's been a lack of a strategic plan to implement that vision. If that was in place, we could address things like salaries and budget reductions and what we're overall trying to achieve in our community.
Thank you. And then Jim?
I think the biggest failure the City Council has had since I've been on there, especially, and it's been prevalent the last 8 years, is its inability to work closely with the third floor, the administrative portion, or the mayor's office, and the council working together to come up with good, solid ideas. We haven't done a good job at that. I'm hoping with the new mayor, I'm hoping that changes as we get some fresh ideas in there. And with that said, could I say something about Ms. Orr's statement?
We've got the option of a rebuttal. I am granting it. 15 seconds rebuttal.
I just wanted to say that the City Council did not give all city employees a 2.5% pay increase. They gave 375 non-uniformed people a pay increase. We did fund that out of reserves, and there's a good reason for it, and maybe perhaps I could explain that later.
Time.
Moving on to our next question. This one will start out with Stevie. Which is a higher priority in your opinion, the West Edge project or the downtown core plan?
Being part of the West Edge myself, I can honestly say the West Edge because it goes along with the CAPER plan, and some people are not familiar with that, but the Housing Community Development Office, we have a CAPER plan that we have drawn up a plan over 5 years ago to make the West Side a better facility and a better place, and to bring up the buildings and the quality of life on the West Side. So the West Edge is a very, very good plan.
Okay, Amy, same question for you.
They do not operate in silos at all. They're both equally important. We have to revitalize our core downtown. We have to fill these vacant buildings and decrease and eliminate this blight and get more people downtown spending money. We also have to develop the infrastructure of the West Edge so that we can have affordable housing, so that we can create a pedestrian experience throughout the entire area.
Okay, Jim, same question for you.
I agree with Ms. Serdam that both are equally important, but my priorities would be with the West Edge project at this point. That's a virgin part of the city that's never had any development. We're in the cusp of making that happen. We're very, very close. And to answer the core projects downtown, and I don't have time to explain it, but the city invests tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars into the downtown every year that I think is unknown to the citizens. I'd love to explain that to somebody sometime.
Marion, same question for you, 30 seconds.
Answering the question specifically, I would place West Edge over the downtown core plan for much of the same reasons I already mentioned. The downtown does have the Downtown Development Authority, a very good entity in which they've been working with. They have received tens of millions of dollars over the past years to revitalize downtown. That being said, West Edge is very important not only for economic development but also basic flood and drainage water control. And I believe that there are really exciting things happening in the West Edge that deserve our attention.
Perfect. We're moving on to now our 11th question of the night for those of you keeping track at home. Starting with Amy Serdam, this one straight to the point. What should be done with the Belvoir Ranch?
I would love to see the Belvoir Ranch opened up with safe access. There's some things that need to be handled on the Belvoir Ranch with debris to ensure that it's safe for recreational use, but it should be opened up. It's an asset to the community. I think it could increase tourism and we would all benefit from its use.
Moving on to Jim, same question.
The 17,000 of the Belvoir Ranch, the city paid $2.5 million for. There is a time for the Belvoir Ranch, but it's not right now. The city does not have the funding for that. The city does have a lease agreement with a turbine company to put turbines out there towards the west edge of that, and if that happens, there's possibility the city could have up to $2 million a year in revenues coming in from the Belvoir, at which time I would be a proponent of putting that money right back into developing the Belvoir.
Thank you for your response. Marion, same question.
Thank you. In my opinion, the main purpose of the Belvoir is the water that exists within the aquifers, and there are recreational opportunities. The other issue that we have, though, at hand is the contamination from the TCE from the abandoned missile silos, and it's my understanding that there's been a committee that's worked very hard on this with Senator Barrasso's office for years. My fear is if we just open up the gate without much forethought, that the federal government, the Army Corps of Engineers, could essentially then hold themselves harmless for any future damages.
Of course, last but not least, Steve.
Ms. Orr is correct. That place could be used and utilized, but first you have, as a mayor, if I'm mayor, I will go and make sure that they clean that up before we bring any of our children out there, because there is some contamination out there, and we should not have anyone out there until we are making sure that that is a safe environment for all city residents.
On to the next question. We'll start out with Jim. Recently, 2 uniformed police positions were eliminated to provide raises for officers. This after Cheyenne Police released a report stating the department is understaffed. Which is more important, retaining officers or increasing the number of officers on the force, and why?
Honestly, 30 seconds is not long enough to answer that, but what I can tell you is they are 11 officers on the force. They admit that they couldn't hire those if they had the money for them. We just can't do it. It's part of our location. The two positions that were in the budget, at their request, they wondered if they could use that money to give their officers an increase to move the lower tier officers up to a better starting salary, at which the mayor agreed, and that's what happened. But that's all taken out of context, and it's not what it seems.
Marion, same question for you.
I believe that the council actually did do a right job by the Police Protection Association in agreeing to their request that they take the funds and instead of the new positions increase the base and starting salaries for some of the lower tiered police. That being said, I think we need to take a very hard look at the budget and fund additional positions in the future.
Stevie, same question for you, 30 seconds.
I applaud the chief. And then I would say we've got to make sure they get the proper men and women they need. They want to go home to their families every night. And if they're understaffed, we're putting them in harm's way. And so I say we have got to find some solution to that problem.
Amy, same question for you.
So we're always better off retaining our existing employees and staff and team members, because when we reduce turnover, we actually have more money within our budgets to pay staff and our team better. And so with the police, you know, we need to retain what we have. We need to pay them better so that they stick around, and then that will naturally increase the budget so that we can hire the additional staff that's needed.
All right. Moving on to our next question. This one's directed first at Marion Orr. What advantage do you have with the past experiences when comparing yourself to the other candidates at this desk?
I've worked very closely with governmental agencies, from the state legislature to mayors throughout the state, county commissioners, and what I've learned is that in Cheyenne, with the way our government's formed, the mayor is not necessarily the top of the heap. It's essentially a three-legged stool. It's a person that can bring the talent and skills of working with the city council and the administration and the community, with those three to really build a strong community. And I believe that my experience bringing that together.
Stevie?
18 years serving on the Housing and Community Development Board, I feel that I can come in, working with the community already, I can come in and I can do some things that I see, that I could bring new ideas, new points, and point out a few things on the budget that probably should not be on the budget, and that we could probably work together and move forward as a stronger community, building up one another and making sure that this is a place that other people would love to come and live.
Amy?
I'm an officer in the Wyoming Army National Guard. I've been serving for the last 14 years. I've been trained in leadership and strategic planning and vision and building teams. I am an executive with the Downtown Development Authority, and I have an acute awareness of what happens within the municipality. And I also am a private business owner. I've owned 8 small businesses and currently own 2, and understand how to manage multiple million-dollar budgets simultaneously and hundreds of people.
Thank you. And Jim?
Jumping into that office is a very high learning curve, believe it or not. And after serving 10 years on the city council, I have, and I've stated before, I have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly with our city. There are a lot of good things, there are some bad things, and there's downright ugly things. And I think I could hit the ground running if I were elected mayor and carry the city forward for the next 4 years. I would certainly hope that my past qualifications would move me into that position.
Thank you. Well, on that note, we'll be switching over to our second round of questions from our viewers. These questions were sent in by our viewers via Facebook, email, some were even called in.
Our first viewer question comes from Nathan. Stevie, you will start. There are many potholes and a lot of structural damage to the streets and highways, and they will only get worse in the following winters. What are you going to do about fixing the streets in Cheyenne?
We've got to get with the Department of Transportation, or some department, I'm not sure which one, but we've got to fix those potholes, and we've got to fix the streets. Our streets have got to come to par. Folks are buying vehicles and then they're getting them tore up within 30 days. I mean, I would prioritize, I don't know how high, but I would make sure that we put them streets back together so when we drive to work we won't have all these issues.
Amy, same question for you, 30 seconds.
Our streets need to be safe. I broke a wheel out running over a pothole, so we need to repair our potholes, and then we need to look at a long-term strategic plan about how we're going to provide the Public Works Department enough money to keep our streets adequately maintained so that they don't deteriorate to this level.
Jim, same question for you.
Well, I have to agree. We have had a pothole problem this winter, and this spring has been very unusual. They're out there. I had breakfast with a gentleman just this week who expressed ideas on how we could make our streets better, how we could make our pothole repairs better so they last longer. If I were mayor, I would be jumping on that real quickly. We need to visit with Public Works and Street and Alley and get a better idea what they need from the administration to make that happen.
Marion, same question for you.
Pothole repairs are not the answer. The answer is repairing and replacing our streets. The potholes are basically a sign that the street's deteriorating. That being said, I would, as mayor, go in and take a really hard look at who's doing the work. Yes, it goes to the lowest the bidder, but I would really want to take a look at the contracts themselves, the bid contracts, and make sure that the specs are high enough, that the work is being done, that the people working on the roads are being held accountable. And $4.3 million is not enough a year for our roads.
Time. Again, these questions are from our viewers. This one from Shelby. We'll be starting with Amy on this round. How healthy do you perceive the current relationship between the mayor and the city council to be? And what will that relationship look like if you are elected in office as mayor?
Just from my perception, I think that relationship is pretty broken right now. I think that there's not a lot of communication between the mayor and a majority of the council. I think it's critical for the mayor to be that liaison between the public and the city council. And if I were mayor, I would definitely be sure that I was communicating with the council weekly and the department heads and the public and bringing people together so that discussions could happen regularly so everyone was on the same page.
And Jim, of course, for those that do not know at home, Jim does serve on the city council. Same question to you.
There is a disconnect between the third floor, which I call the administration of the mayor's office, the first floor, which the city council is located on. That's been there for quite some time. The city council, or the leadership of city council, which is finance committee chairman, public service committee chairman, council president, vice president, meet with the mayor once a month, and we compare notes, and we get to weigh in on different. That just started within the last year, so it is getting better, but that disconnect is one of the biggest issues facing City Hall, I think.
Thank you, Jim. Marion, same question?
I think it's incumbent on the mayor to lead that communication. Our city council, they're part-time. It's up to the mayor, full-time position, the administration, full-time, to really work to provide our city council with as much information, as timely as information. I don't believe over-communication is even possible. I'm very happy to hear that over the past few months they've been meeting on a monthly basis over the past year. I would certainly continue that, and I would actually increase those meetings and include key administrative people.
Thank you for your response, Marion. And Stevie?
It's a very disconnect. And what I would say is we have to be like the old farmer told the mule, come on, mule. And he started calling names, Bob, John, Jimmy, James. And the other farmer said, there's only one mule. He said, but he'll get to work if he thinks he got help. So we've got to help. They've got to help each other. So as mayor, I will get in there and call them all. Come help me. Let's do this. Let's step to the plate. Let's make this city a better place for our citizens, for our community.
And this next question comes from Nathan on Facebook. We'll start with Jim. If elected within the first 6 months of taking office, you'll need to represent the city's interests at the legislature, negotiate a new contract for the firefighters union, and prepare and pass next year's budget. How are you preparing to get started on day one?
On day one, excuse me, because of my experience of being there for 10 years, I can hit the ground running. I will work very closely with city staff. A good mayor surrounds himself with good, solid people, and he believes in their recommendations. He believes in their help, and I would use staff as my tool to get with the legislature, certainly to work with the fire department negotiations in the unions, which I've been through several, so I know what that's like. I think my experience and just being able to hit the ground running is...
And Marion, same question for you.
Within the first 30, 60, 90, I have, fortunately, I bring to the table an extensive relationship with the legislature and executive branch. I would certainly pull in the administration. I would look at specifically the budget, I believe that's our biggest issue at hand. I would take a look at finding ways within overages for fifth penny, sixth penny, how we can develop essentially a similar mechanism for savings that's very similar to the permanent mineral trust fund, bring that to a city level. As far as negotiations, hey, I'm a lobbyist.
Time.
I've been lobbying for over 20 years. That's what I do.
We will move on to Stevie. 30 seconds, same question.
I myself is going to get in there, and I'm going to go, and I know we have to trust those that are working with us, but I'm going to work with them, not let them do it all, because if I let them do it all, then I'm not helping. And that's that part where the mayor has to get in there, and he has to put his hand to the plow, and he has to move, and then we get there and we can make things happen and we can change things. And I believe we can come up with some solutions about the fire department quick and easy with the chief that's in there. I just met him the other day.
Amy?
I think working as a team is going to get these things accomplished in the best way possible. I've been doing a lot of research with department leaders and within the departments themselves and the budget, trying to look at these things so that I'm ready on day one. Including the council in a lot of these discussions will be essential, and just moving forward and working well with people and representing our city one-on-one is going to be our best move.
All right, and I do have to mention that while answering that question, she was also battling the fly, if you can't tell at home, so props to you. Sorry, it is summer. Every now and then you get in, but we'll get somebody to pin that one down. Well, hey, this next question comes from Julie on Facebook. We'll be starting with Marion on this one. And again, CBS News Channel 5, I'm sure there's a discussion going on Facebook right now if you want to join it. Julie would like to know what you are going to do to resolve the landfill issue. Are they going to look for other ways around this, such as adding the landfill to the 6 penny tax or doing some type of bond instead?
That's a great question. Yes, the landfill is definitely it's an issue. I believe that we need to look at alternative ways than shipping it out. Expansion of the Happy Jack landfill is certainly going to be costly. Mr. Brown probably knows more than I do as far as whether or not that will be included on the 6 penny. That would not be for this mayor to decide, but I believe that it's definitely something that needs to be funded through taxpayer dollars.
Thank you. Stevie, and again, if you need the question asked again, let me
Great
know.
question. I'm a sanitation worker, so I know we need that landfill up and running. So what we've got to do is we've got to get that thing back up and running. We could save, I believe it's $1.5 million from hauling our trash to Alton in on diesel fuel. So what we need to do is when I get in there, we're going to make sure that we get this landfill up and running so the citizens can also go out there and dump their trash instead of having to come to the transfer station.
Thank you. Amy?
I absolutely think we should expand the current landfill. It will give us about 30 more years of trash and possibly more if we focus on a recycling effort within our community. Whether that's to be done by a bond or a 6 penny, I would need to look a lot closer at what those investments would look like and how those would play out.
Jim?
First, I don't believe the sanitation or the landfill issue has made the short list on the 6 penny. It would be my idea that we would probably issue revenue bonds to make up that shortfall. I think our first sell or our total expansion last is for the next 30 years was in that $12 to $15 million range. So revenue bonding would probably be what I would opt for. And this thing can't happen quick enough, but we're at the mercy of the state. They have to issue the permits.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question comes from a viewer called in My Tom, and you'll respond for Stevie. What will you do to address the issue of, quote, slumlords and poor property maintenance in residential neighborhoods?
Wow, that's a very good one. Being on the Housing and Community Development Board, I'm telling you, we see it all the time. I think we need to go and hold these slumlords accountable. And, you know, the city does, I believe they have the right to come in and make people, there's codes and stuff we can hit the landlord with to clean up these properties, and we just gonna have to get a code enforcement officer to stick to them.
Okay, Amy, same question for you.
I'm actually working on this basically with vacant and abandoned and just a minimum maintenance standard that we can apply throughout the downtown district that could spill over to the entire city. But we need some minimum maintenance standards for all of our buildings within our community. We need to hold people accountable. We need to enforce current codes and ordinances and then beef up those and adopt other codes and ordinances that can help improve the situation.
Jim, same question, 30 seconds.
We have one nuisance officer for the whole city. He does a great job. He's busier than heck. The city does not have the authority to go in and clean up anybody's property. We thought we did at one time, but due to legal actions and review, we don't have. That ordinance is being reviewed and it's going to be brought forward for amendments where the city will have the authority to go in, clean up a piece of property, but we have to give those people that make us do that an appeal process, which they've never had. So it needs work. We're working on it. It'll get taken care of within the next 3 to 6 months.
Right. Marion?
On day one, I've said that I would bring together a task force of realtors, commercial developers, private developers, a legal team to take a look at every tool available to us in the toolbox at doing what we can for not only private the entities, the slumlord issue, but the vacant and abandoned buildings. I believe that there's a lot that has been done in other communities, and the laws that we are held to today don't need to necessarily be the laws of tomorrow.
Okay. And we have a request for a rebuttal. Stevie, 15 seconds.
I'd like to say that when I first started, we used to go and take property as sanitation. We would go clean up properties, and we would do it, and then they would charge the city owner of that property. We did it.
We've got another rebuttal request from Jim.
Very quickly, that was used in the past, but through legal review, we can't do that. We shouldn't have been doing it then. We can't be doing it now, and that's why the ordinance needs to be revisited and amendments made to it so we can take those actions.
All right, got some great clarification on that question. Thank you all for that. This next question, we'll be starting with Amy on it. Excellent question from Peg. And how would you describe what you bring to the mayor's office that is similar and different to Mayor Kaysen?
So Mayor Kaysen is actually very organized, and he is a good communicator at times with people within the community, and he's also very friendly and kind. And so I am all of those things. I feel like I'm definitely excellent at communication with people that I work with, and I bring a definite team approach to the table. I think very strategically, and I implement strategic plans. I also create visions initially with anything we do. Where are we going? What's the mission? How are we going to get there?
Time. Jim?
The mayor and I get along very well. We have both similar personalities. The thing about the mayor that differs from me is he keeps it close to the vest. He's a detailed guy. He takes notes. I, in turn, would rely strongly on my staff to help me do that. I think managers and your staff who are managers, they make things right. I think a leadership, the leader of a city should do the right thing, and there's a difference there. The mayor, we just have different personalities and different ways of managing.
Time. Mary.
Mayor Kaysen is very detailed oriented, and I believe that we probably share that. What I believe I would bring to the table differently is the ability and the capability to work with other organizations from the business community, the community at large, the council, to collaborate and to make a decision. And I believe that overall communication and decision making would be something that I would bring to the table.
Thank you. And Stevie.
Me and Mayor Kaysen are somewhat the same as personality-wise. He's a very nice gentleman. But the difference is I'm fair, firm, and consistent. I'm going to stick to that. And if you're in a position of authority, I'm going to make sure I hold you to the tie you to the line. You can't just let people run free. You have to stick and watch what they're doing also. Don't mean you have to criticize them, but you got to make sure they're doing what they say they're doing.
Okay. This next question comes from the chairman for the Cheyenne Historic Preservation Board, James Fuller. It is a long one. First answer is going to be Jim. As mayor, would you consider funding to establish a grant program to fund historic preservation for the public, or could the city establish a plan where preservation loans were made to the public for deferred maintenance on their property with a low interest rate?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's come up in the past from the city. 30 seconds is not enough to answer that question. Funding. The city has a certain amount of funding. It's finite. It's not ever-ending. I believe in the concept. I believe in the theory behind the question. We just wouldn't have the funding to make that happen, at least not through the next 2 budget cycles, in my opinion.
Okay. Marion, same question for you.
Could you please repeat it?
I can. As mayor, would you consider funding to establish a grant program to fund historic preservation for the public, or could the city establish a plan where preservation loans were made to the public for deferred maintenance on their property with a low interest rate?
Boy, that's a great question, and I would probably defer to the second part of that with providing loans with a small interest rate if those funds were available. Currently, we don't unfortunately have that nest of reserves, but I believe that future projects could be set aside. A really good way to take a look at it would be the tax structure and again, possibly taking overages from the fifth penny and establishing a permanent trust fund to take care of those historic buildings in the future.
Okay. Stevie, same question for you, 30 seconds.
That's a good question. It's something if I become, when I'm mayor, I will look at deeply into, but I'm sure me loving history, I want to keep Cheyenne's history. So historical preservation is very needed in Cheyenne. I want my grandson and children to say, hey, remember this was this old place here? And I would look into it, but not saying we can get it done, but I would look into it.
Okay, Amy, same question for you.
I think historic preservation is emotionally beneficial for the community. It brings in a lot of tourism. It's very important. Actually, at the Downtown Development Authority, there's already a program in place for historic preservation. It's called the Facade Improvement Program, and people can already apply for grants through that program to restore the exterior facade. And we are looking at ways for the benefit of property owners, possible loan programs that we could help with the interior as well.
All right, we've got about 10 minutes until we hit 6 o'clock. Time for a few more questions. This question coming from Alishma, and I'm so sorry if I butchered your name, Alishma, but we're going to start with Marion on this one. Alishma says, we need more things for teenagers to do in town, including young professionals. What big ideas do you have for teens and young professionals?
Boy, that's a great question, and our Parks and Recreation has done a fantastic job. And in meeting with Director Parrish, it's my understanding that there's a proposal on the table to expand some fields, some core areas in the area near the the Ice and Event Center, and I believe he's got a great plan. I also believe that it doesn't necessarily always have to be the role of government. I would love to see some private developers. For instance, I'm a big golfer. I'd love a Topgolf here in town. I don't believe it's the city's job to bring in a Topgolf. So I would work with other businesses.
Thank you. Stevie?
Rec center. And I'll say that with full-hearted, I love a rec center. Indoor soccer. Indoor. We're in Wyoming. The wind blows too much for us to have too many outdoor facilities. So we need something that we can have year-round that the children, the young professionals, they also will have room space for meetings for young folks, and you can have little dances and stuff. So I would say a rec center. Let's move forward.
Thank you. Amy, your response.
I absolutely support anything and all things for our kids. 1 out of 4 of our kids in Laramie County don't graduate high school. We need a positive place for our children. We need a positive place for our families. That includes a rec center. That includes an indoor soccer and baseball field that can be also used as a convention center, so we can further economic development within our community and put tourism back in here and keep our people here. And that absolutely includes a children's museum.
Thank you. And Jim?
Well, very quickly, to be absolutely honest with the citizens that might be watching this, honestly, there was nothing for kids to do 30 years ago, nothing 20 years ago, 10. There's never been anything in Cheyenne for kids to do for the last 50 years, at least in my opinion. I grew up here. I don't think it's the mayor's or the city's job to come up with specifics for that. But if I was mayor, I think it'd be great to get a city citizens committee together to come up with an idea. But then the funding comes the issue, and perhaps we need to get it on a question on the 6th penny.
Thank you so much, Jim. Well, unfortunately, we're nearing the end of the debate, and that's going to bring us to our closing statements. We had a lot of great questions from Facebook and email we didn't get to.
Absolutely. And since we started with Jim for the opening statements, we're going to start with Amy for our closing statements. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. I am all about a positive place in our community for our families and our culture. Should the municipality be the be-all, end-all to provide this? No, but we can absolutely support these efforts. All of these efforts are going to keep our kids here or have them come back. We're going to spur economic development. We're going to be able to recruit and retain our workforce. We're going to have our 22% of our workforce that commutes in every day actually living here, contributing to that 5th and 6th penny sales tax base so that we can further take care of the infrastructure and the needs that our community has. I have the experience to do this job. I am the most experienced and qualified candidate for this. I want to help our community. I want to help our community, and I would be an excellent mayor for you.
Next up, Jim, closing statements, 1 minute.
As I've stated, I've sat 10 years on the city council. I'm very close to how the city operates. I'm very close to what's wrong with the city. I'm very close to what can be changed at the city to benefit the citizens. Nothing new. I can hit the ground running much better than anyone else running for the mayor's job for the next 4 years. I feel that my decision making, I've run a business for the last 22 years. I'm very familiar with city staff and how they think and what needs to be changed down there. I think I would be your best bet to take the city forward for the next 4 years. There's fresh ideas, and I would be the person that could do that for you.
Okay, Marion?
Thank you, Tiffany and Andrew and KGWN, and certainly all of the listeners and viewers that send in their great questions. I have really enjoyed this campaign and social media and getting out there in the community. And rather than coming to the city of Cheyenne with my great ideas, I've really taken the past few months to listen to others, to listen to city employees, to listen to business owners. And I can tell you that I will bring to this office transparency, accountability. I believe in placing our needs over our wants. I believe that we need to show fiscal restraint, fiscal sanity. I believe in, again, transparency. If elected mayor, I will work with our city council to have city council meetings, town halls in every corner of our community with that council, Ward 1, Ward 2, Ward 3, bring it back home to the city building at the end of the year. But I believe that we need a city government that's open to business friendly, shovel ready, and I believe I'm the mayor to do that.
Last up, Stevie, you have 1 minute.
FFC. Fair, firm, and consistent. Change for future Cheyenne. I won't say that I'm the best candidate, but I will be the hardest working candidate. I will get in there and work for the city. I will get in there and work for the community. I will get in there and get dirty. I will get in there and throw dirt, trash, mud, whatever it takes to make this a positive place for the youth. I will make this a place where people will want to come and live. I will make this a safe community with our police department, so when they go home at night, they will go home to their children. I will make sure that we have youth things for the youth. I will make sure that we are surrounding ourselves with every opportunity to succeed, and then not only succeed, but stay in Cheyenne. Don't go to Denver. Stay here.
Perfect. Hey, I want to thank you all very seriously for coming here. I think it's very educational for the city, and I know that a lot of you have busy calendars while campaigning, so a huge shout out to these four for being able to make it, and for you at home for watching. So important that you're educated when you hit up those polls.
Absolutely. A reminder, altogether there are 10 candidates that have filed for the position. Those 10 in alphabetical order by last name: Jim Brown, Ricky Coppinger, Stephen Gannison, Peter Illaway, Marion Orr,
along with John Palmer, Albert Ramza, Scott Roybal, Amy Surdam, and Rex Wild. Again, it is your duty to stay informed before you hit the polls. We'll be here to help you. We've extended an invitation to all 10 candidates that have filed for an in-studio interview. Those interviews will be posted on kgwn.tv beginning July 15th. We're offering the chance for write-in candidates to be included in this interview process, but only if enough support is shown. If you'd like to see a particular write-in candidate, email news@kgwn.tv. In the subject line, put write-in candidate. In the body of the email, put the name. The sooner you show your support, the better chance the invitation is offered.
Important dates you need to be aware of: absentee voting in Laramie County begins July 1st. August 1st, open registration for the primary election closes.
August 16th is the primary election day. Only 2 mayoral candidates move on to that day. And November 8th is the general election.
We want to thank the candidates for participating.
And of course, again, you the viewer for watching. Your vote does count. Stay informed. That does it for us. News Channel 5's Morales. We'll see you tonight at 10.
This has been a KGWN News Channel 5 special program, the Cheyenne Mayoral Debate.